we're here welcoming the Minister for Roads, Fisheries and Ports, Craig Wallace. Thanks for joining us today. How did you get into boating?
Well, I grew up in a little community about 100 kilometres south of Townsville called Home Hill. My mum and dad loved their fishing. Indeed, my dad and my granddad were fishermen in their younger day. So as a young kid, we'd be put into the boat and go out crabbing, go out fishing. Indeed, mum and dad tell the story that when I first learnt to crawl, I ate so much crab I crawled sideways. But that's a great family myth, and it shows the way that I grew up in a boat from a young kid.
And have you continued it throughout your life?
Absolutely. No greater joy than getting in the boat, putting my kids in there and helping us get out there and enjoy the wonderful scenery that we've got in Queensland. I think as Queenslanders, we're blessed that we've got such great creeks, great rivers, and of course the Great Barrier Reef to have a look at as we enjoy the wonderful lifestyle here.
So you're never too young, never too old?
Absolutely not. From a young kid to however old you want to be to get out in the water. Great relaxation and great enjoyment.
And what do you do these days?
Well, these days, when I do get a chance, when I'm not running the roads and the fisheries and the ports across Queensland, I like to put the boat in the water, take the family out, because it's a great activity getting on the water with the family, throw a couple of crab pots in and try and catch some fish for dinner. I can't think of a better way as a Queenslander to spend a weekend than put the boat in the water, enjoy the wonderful scenery, the wonderful nature we've got across our great state, and really relax.
And as a Townsville local, there must be some pretty good spots up there. Any particular favourites?
Well, absolutely. I grew up, as I said, in a small town called Home Hill. There's a creek there named after my great-grandfather called Wallace's Creek in Home Hill, famous for its mud crabs and the odd barramundi as well. So that's where I spent my childhood. You know, I couldn't think of anything better than putting the boat in the water and going there, putting the crab pots out, relaxing, having a couple of mud crabs later that night with a nice cold beer.
And what do you recall your first boat? Did you have your own boat?
I do. When I was a little kid, Mum and Dad bought me a little punt. It was only about 8 foot long and had a 5 horsepower Evinrude on the back. Now the Evinrude was about 30 years older than me, so it was a very old motor, but it got us along okay. So my brother and I would go out. We always had a life jacket on. Mum and Dad stipulated we wear life jackets, and we went out, and that's where we honed our boat craft. That's where we learnt how to drive a boat. Dad would show us how to do it, how to handle the water safely, and how to be considerate to other boaties on the water. So that's where I grew up with my love of boating.
You mentioned some great spots in Townsville to fish. Do you have any other favourite Queensland boating spots?
Absolutely. Well, Magnetic Island off Townsville is just close to Townsville. It's on our doorstep, so some great boating and fishing there. And of course the Great Barrier Reef during the fishing season, when you can get out there when the winds aren't too low, some good fishing. But I was really spoilt the other week. A couple of mates and I went up to Swears Island in the middle of the Gulf of Carpentaria and fished there and caught some wonderful fish off Swears Island. So I tell you what, I've got a great lifestyle living in Queensland, and you know, everyone can enjoy that. It just takes a bit of time, a bit of planning. Instead of going on that overseas holiday, grab a boat and go out fishing, or go out and have a look at our wonderful Queensland coastline. Do
you have any memorable boating events or mishaps or incidents that you recall from your childhood?
Probably a few too many to recount here, but one that I can recall very, very clearly was a mate and myself were out crabbing one day, and he was driving the boat and he caught the wave in the wrong direction. And I had a mud crab in my hand that I was preparing to tie. I got tossed out of the boat with the mud crab in hand, came to the top of the water and still had the crab there. So the great story is I never let that crab go, threw it back in the boat and jumped in. So that's one of the stories. We did eat that crab that night. It was very delicious as well.
Now, if you had your wish list, do you have a dream boat or dream boating destination that you're yet to fulfil?
I think really having a look at our coastline, going up and down the Queensland coastline in a nice cruiser, calling in, having the time to do it properly and not being stressed about getting home or getting back to work. So my dream would be to cruise the Queensland coastline from Coolangatta right up to the Northern Territory border, so up and around, up the Cape and back around the Gulf. Having a look at those inlets, coming in and seeing what's on offer in Queensland would be a great holiday.
Oh well, all the best with that dream.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you. Craig. Thanks very much.
We all know how great it is to go out in the water, to enjoy the wonderful lifestyle that we've got in Queensland when you're boating. But be careful, make sure that you've got your life jackets, make sure you've got your safety equipment up to date, and make sure you service your boat before you go in the water. We want everyone to go out, enjoy our wonderful waterways, enjoy their boating, but come home safely. So if you're going out in the future, make sure your boat's safe, check your safety equipment, and of course, just like the road, don't drink and drive, so have a dedicated driver on the water as well. Good luck with your boating, tight lines if you're going fishing, but most of all, come back safe.
What about people who've never come into contact with friends or neighbours or relatives who own boats? How easy is it for them to get into boating and experience it?
That's where I think the school programs are really picking up the slack there. There's lots and lots of programs now. There's one that I've seen in a few schools which is a fishing based, so rather than doing their sport they actually learn to fish. Some of them actually learn to fish in swimming pools and things, and making their own reels and all those sorts of things. Other ones down at RQ, Royal Queensland Yacht Squadron, we often go down there for lunch. And it's great just being there and seeing 7 and 8 year olds learning how the wind affects the sails and the current, and having a fantastic time. So I think they've really done a great job in picking up the slack there.
Certainly in New South Wales, I know they're thinking of rolling these programs out nationally. They've had a lot of success with try boating just this weekend, try crewing and try sailing, and that's just people driving past and seeing a sign and stopping and getting to go out on magnificent yachts and small tinnies as well. So there certainly are some fingers in the community where people can enter.
I think that's one of the fantastic things about boating though. Like, there are just so many ways that you can get into it, whether it be sailing or whether it be through sports or just, you know, cruising or diving, or there's just so many ways that you can get into boating and so many options. So it's really just a matter of getting out there and just having a go.
But why boating over other recreational activities? I mean, there's thousands of things that are occupying our time for good or bad. You know, why should people consider boating?
Well, I think boating, as I said, is one of those things where it's, you know, when you're out on the water, it's a totally different environment. You know, I mean, we're land-based creatures, and when you're out there, you know, you see things differently. It's just that sort of, as I said, that sense of freedom. So you're all together, and you just sit there. And
Australia's an island, isn't it?
Yeah,
we're all from somewhere else. We should follow our genetic code. And I've got written here that water access in Queensland is easier than we might think. We all live within 1 hour of a body of water. So
that's right, and the body of water doesn't have to be the ocean. You know, it can be a dam, or it can be a river, or a creek, or whatever. So there's lots and lots of options.
Does Marine Queensland have a role in the infrastructure at these bodies of water? What role do you play in that?
Yeah, well, we're obviously in discussions regularly with government around things like boat ramps and pontoons and marinas and all of those sorts of infrastructure requirements.
Are they expanding, I guess, to keep pace with consumer demand? And
yeah, very much so. I mean,
demand?
the Queensland government, you know, is very much committed to recreational boating, and they recently conducted a study where they're trying to forecast the future demand needs so that they can, you know, put appropriate money into it. So, you know, they sort of see boating as an important and healthy community activity. So,
how many people are into boating? How many people have boat licences?
Well, in Queensland at the moment, there's around about 700,000. So it's a lot of people, but plenty of scope for more.
That's right.
Another part of the market that's growing popularity is the car topper market. What's a car topper, you ask? Well, just as it implies, it's a boat that's small enough, narrow enough, manhandling enough that you can get up on the roof racks of your vehicle. This particular one here may be a little older, but it certainly has had a lot of love and thought gone into where the accessories will go to suit that particular owner's needs. We know for a fact this particular one's caught plenty of barramundi. Another question we get frequently asked with the car toppers is, do I need to have these registered considering their size? Yes, you do. Remember, anything over 4 horsepower or 3 kilowatts in Queensland on the Queensland waterways must be registered. And remember, over 6 horsepower, you need to have a licence. Here I am on a very, very popular cuddy cabin. People ask, what's a cuddy cabin? Well, a cuddy cabin is a boat that has a cabin up on the bow of the boat, but it generally only takes up about 1/3 of the boat's length. It's enough area there to get maybe the children to have a sit down when you're at anchor, but also store a bit of gear when you might be bouncing around the place to keep it dry and out of the weather. With the cuddy cabins, some of the great things are that they are not only made in aluminium, they're also made in fiberglass, and this is a fantastic example of a very popular cuddy cabin on today's market, both new and used. It has seating on board for 5 people, and it's also rated for 5 people in smooth waters. It has rear seating, 2 very comfortable seats for passenger and a driver, plenty of grab handles around it. But one of the great things that I like with a cuddy cabin, and we'll touch on this as we move our way through our boat models and ranges, you can stand up behind the steering wheel.
After the break,